Deep in the heart of a wild rainforest, a mother pig's desperate cries echo through the jungle, but when rescuers arrive, they face a nightmare no one could have imagined. A python as long as a truck, and it's not ready to let go. The air was thick with moisture. Leaves dripped with dew, and the faint hum of insects filled the morning silence. Sunlight pierced through the canopy in narrow golden shafts, flickering across the muddy ground. Birds called from somewhere deep within the green maze, their cries sharp and restless. The forest seemed alive, breathing in quiet rhythm. Then a sound broke the calm, a sharp, desperate squeal. It came from beyond the ridge where the forest dipped toward a shallow stream. Another squeal followed, this time louder, raw, terrified. The man leading the group froze. His name was Rafik. A veteran forest ranger, his eyes were trained to read every sound, every shift in tone. He raised his hand. Quiet, he whispered, his voice rough but steady. The team behind him halted, 3 men and 1 woman, each carrying ropes, poles, and tranquilizer sticks. They had come searching for a missing mother pig from a nearby farm, but now that missing animal might be in grave danger. The sound came again, a thrashing, violent movement, followed by another desperate squeal. Rafik's pulse quickened. He motioned for the team to follow silently. Their boots sank into the wet earth as they moved, step by step, through the thick undergrowth. The smell of damp soil mixed with the faint musk of wild animals. A low mist hung over the forest floor, curling around roots and fallen branches. Then they saw it, and they saw it. Through the ferns, barely 20 meters ahead, something moved, something massive. Rafik crouched low and squinted. At first, he saw only a twisted coil, black and green scales glinting in filtered sunlight. Then the shape shifted. A head rose slowly from the ground, triangular and menacing. The giant python's body wound tightly around the mother pig. Her legs kicked weakly. The snake's muscles rippled as it tightened its grip. The sound of bones creaking filled the air. Soft, horrifying, final. The team froze in shock. Rafik's heart hammered in his chest. He had seen snakes before, many of them, but never one like this. The python's body was thick as a man's torso, stretching over 6 meters long. Its scales shimmered like wet armor. Each breath it took sounded deep, heavy, ancient. The pig's eyes rolled in panic, her snout pressed against the mud. Kiss the mud. Rafik swallowed hard. They were too late to save her, unless they acted now. He signaled to his second-in-command, Nadia. Her hands trembled slightly as she gripped the tranquilizer pole. "Oh, wait," Rafik said softly. He studied the snake's movement. The python had almost finished constricting its prey. If they startled it now, it might turn on them. He waited for a moment, a single breath, then whispered, "On my mark." The forest seemed to hold its breath. Even the insects fell silent. Rafik counted under his breath. 1, 2, 3. And now. The team sprang forward. Nadia lunged to the left, aiming the tranquilizer at the snake's midsection. A sharp hiss erupted from the python. It recoiled, twisting violently. Mud flew into the air as the massive body thrashed in wild fury. Rafik charged in with his steel pole, trying to wedge it between the snake's coils. The pig screamed again, a sound so raw it cut through the chaos. The python's head turned sharply, its eyes locking onto Rafik. Cold, unblinking, predatory. He felt the weight of its gaze, ancient, calculating. Then it lunged. Rafik barely managed to dodge as the snake's head struck where he had been standing a second before. Its jaws snapped shut with a dull, terrifying sound. Nadia shouted, "Hit it again!" Another tranquilizer dart flew, this time embedding deep into the snake's side. The creature thrashed harder. Its body slammed against a tree trunk, shaking loose a rain of leaves. Rafik stumbled backward, slipping on wet roots. The snake turned its head again, striking out wildly. The tip of its jaw scraped across his sleeve, a glancing hit but strong enough to tear fabric. Pain burned across his arm. Across his arm. He gritted his teeth. "Keep your distance," he shouted. The others obeyed, forming a loose circle around the python. The forest echoed with chaos, snapping branches, the grunts of the pig, the heavy breathing of the rescuers. Then, slowly, the snake's movements began to weaken. The tranquilizer was taking effect. Its coils loosened. The pig slumped to the ground, gasping weakly for air. Rafik exhaled in relief. "Hold your ground," he said. They waited, watching carefully as the python's head sank lower, its tongue flicking slower and slower. Finally, it lay still. For a moment, only the dripping of water broke the silence. Nadia knelt beside the pig. "She is alive," she said, her voice trembling. Rafik nodded, his chest rising and falling heavily. They had done it. But as he turned toward the python's enormous body, a strange feeling crawled through him. Something was not right. The snake's breathing had stopped too soon. It was too still, too quiet. Rafik took a cautious step closer. His eyes followed the long, scaly body, from the tail coiled loosely around the mud, to the head lying half-hidden under a tangle of roots, and then he saw the eyes, free eyes, open, focused, watching. Before he could shout a warning, the python surged upward again, faster than he could react. Its tail whipped through the air, striking one of the rescuers square in the chest. The man fell backward, crashing into the ferns. The snake's jaws opened wide. Nadia screamed. Rafik dove to the side, grabbing his steel pole again. The snake struck, its teeth clamping down on the end of the pole with a sharp metallic sound. The force nearly tore the weapon from his hands. Mud splashed across his face. The forest erupted once more into chaos. The team shouted orders, trying to regroup. Dart it again, Rafik yelled, but the snake's thrashing made it impossible to aim. It twisted its massive body toward them, knocking over branches and scattering leaves in every direction. The tranquilizer had slowed it, but not enough. It was angry now, fighting not for food but for survival. Rafik could feel the vibration of its movements through the ground. Each impact shook his bones. He knew one thing for certain. They had entered a battle they might not win. The python's movement tore through the ferns like a wave of muscle and rage. Rafik could feel the force vibrating through the ground beneath his boots. He steadied his breathing. The creature's eyes gleamed like wet stones, cold and unreadable. Its tongue flicked in and out, tasting the air, sensing fear. The air smelled of mud, sweat, and the sharp, sour musk of the reptile. Every drop of humidity clung to his skin like a second layer. "Stay back!" Rafik shouted again. His voice cracked through the chaos. The team obeyed, retreating behind a fallen log. Only Nadia stayed beside him, gripping her dart gun tightly. The pig lay a few meters away, breathing weakly, her flank rising and falling in shallow motion. They could not abandon her now. Rafik crouched lower, watching the python's movements. It was coiling again, defensive, not attacking. Its massive body looped into a ring, head lifted, jaw twitching. Rafik whispered, "It is trying to make a stand." Nadia's face was pale, her hair stuck to her forehead. "Oh, what do we do?" she asked. Rafik's eyes scanned the clearing. The tranquilizer pole had fallen just out of reach, lying half buried in mud near the base of a tree. The python's body blocked the path to it. He took a deep breath, feeling his heartbeat drum against his ribs. The forest seemed to hold its breath again. Birds had gone silent. The world shrank to the circle of danger in front of him. Rafik wiped the sweat from his brow with a trembling hand. His palm came away streaked with mud. He could hear the python breathing, slow, deliberate, heavy. Each inhale sounded like a long hiss of escaping steam. He remembered the last time he had faced one of these creatures. Smaller, younger, easier to control. But this one was a relic, a survivor from deep jungle swamps where few humans ventured. And now it was cornered. He whispered to Nadia, "I will distract it. You take the shot." Her eyes widened. "You cannot get that close." "I must," he said, his voice steady but low. "If we lose this chance, it will kill again." She nodded reluctantly. Rafik took a step forward, then another. The mud sucked at his boots with every movement. His breath came slow, steady, deliberate. The python's head turned to follow him. Its body tensed. He felt the air shift, that electric tension before an attack. "And now!" he shouted. Nadia raised her dart gun and fired. The hiss of compressed air cut through the forest. The dart hit the python just behind the neck. It let out a violent hiss, twisting upward, knocking Rafik off balance. He fell backward into the mud, landing hard. The snake lunged again, jaws open wide. Rafik rolled aside, feeling the brush of scales slide against his arm. He scrambled to his feet, grabbing a branch to steady himself. The python thrashed violently, throwing up a cloud of wet soil. Rafik's ears rang with the noise, the crash of branches, the heavy breathing, the terrified cries of the pig. "Hold on!" Nadia shouted. Another rescuer rushed forward with a steel pole. Together, they pinned the snake's head to the ground. The creature's body writhed in fury, but its strength began to fade again as the tranquilizer spread. Rafik pressed down with all his weight. The python's body trembled once more, then slowed, trembled once more. Its breathing deepened, its muscles softening. Rafik held his position, counting the seconds. 10, 20, 30. Then the massive body lay still again. He did not move right away. He had learned never to trust stillness in the wild. Only when the forest sounds began to return. The faint buzz of insects, the distant croak of frogs. Did he exhale? Nadia lowered her weapon. Her hands shook. Is it over? She asked softly. Rafik nodded slowly. For now. The team gathered around, panting, mud-streaked, trembling. The man who had been struck by the python's tail sat up, clutching his chest but breathing. I am fine, he rasped. Rafik knelt beside the pig. Her side was bruised, her breathing ragged, but her eyes were open. She blinked weakly, as if aware that the danger had passed. She will live, he murmured. The team shared a moment of silent relief, but the forest was not done with them. From somewhere behind, deep within the undergrowth, another sound drifted through the air. It was faint at first, a rustle, a slow drag through wet leaves. Rafik's eyes darted toward the sound. The others followed his gaze. Nadia frowned. Oh, what is that? Rafik's hand tightened around his pole again. Stay alert, he said quietly. The sound grew louder, a sliding rhythmic motion, heavy and deliberate. Branches shifted, leaves trembled. The team formed a defensive circle, weapons ready. Then, from the shadows beyond the clearing, another python emerged, smaller than the first but faster. Its head lifted, tongue flicking rapidly, tasting the air filled with human scent. The forest erupted once more into tension. The exhausted rescuers exchanged glances. Ha! They were surrounded by jungle, deep, endless, unpredictable, and this time there was no element of surprise. Rafik's voice was calm but cold. Cold! We are not alone in this forest. The second python moved closer, its body sliding across the mud with silent grace. Nadia whispered, we have only one dart left. Rafik's eyes never left the creature. He could hear his own heartbeat again, slow, heavy, echoing in his ears. He felt the weight of the jungle pressing in, every sound amplified by fear. The python stopped moving, half of its body still hidden under ferns, its head tilted slightly, watching them. The two pythons, the tranquilized one and the new arrival, created a chilling sight. One massive, subdued, but alive, the other, alert, cautious, ready. Rafik took a deep breath, the air thick in his lungs. The scent of earth and fear mixed together. He knew what they had to do next. I'll secure the first one, he said softly. Then we back away, slowly. But before they could move, the smaller python began to circle. It was not attacking. It was observing, studying them. Its eyes glowed faintly in the filtered sunlight. Rafik stepped in front of the group, raising his pole defensively. The forest once again held its breath. Then, from the far side of the clearing, a new sound echoed, deep, distant thunder rolling across the canopy. But it was not thunder. It was the call of a large animal, something else moving nearby. Nadia turned, alarmed. What is that? Rafik listened. The sound came again, low, guttural, closer. He felt his stomach tighten. Something big was coming through the jungle. Something that did not care who stood in its way. He whispered, everyone stay together. The forest around them grew darker as clouds swallowed the light. A storm was brewing, and not just from the sky. The air trembled with unseen energy. The tranquilized python twitched. The second one slid closer, its body brushing against the other. Rafik's grip tightened. They had fought one monster. The forest darkened beneath the heavy clouds, and the air turned cool and wet. Rafik lifted his face to the sky for a moment, letting the drops slide down his cheeks, mixing with sweat and mud. He could hear the slow breathing of the mother pig beside him, faint but alive. The tranquilized python lay motionless, its scales slick with rainwater. Steam rose faintly from its massive body. The second python had vanished into the undergrowth, melting back into the wild without a sound. Only the marks in the mud showed that it had ever been there. For a long while, no one spoke. The forest filled the silence with its own voice, the steady hum of rain, the chirping of frogs awakening with the storm, the rustle of wet leaves. Nadia sat beside the pig, gently wiping mud from its snout. Her eyes were red, her hands trembling with exhaustion. She made it, she whispered. Rafik nodded slowly. Yes, she fought hard. He stood stretching his sore back. Every muscle in his body ached, but inside him, a deep calm began to rise. The storm had washed away the panic. Only relief remained, heavy, quiet, and real. The team began their work in silence. They tied the python's body with ropes, preparing to transport it deeper into the forest for release, not as a trophy, but as a creature that belonged here, part of this wild, unpredictable balance. Rafik walked beside the tranquilized snake, watching the rise and fall of its breathing. It was a terrifying sight, yet somehow beautiful. Its strength was undeniable, its existence ancient. he whispered, almost to himself. We came here to save a life. But the jungle reminds us every life, even this one, has its place. Nadia looked up at him, her expression tired but peaceful. Will it survive? She asked. Rafik nodded. It will. These creatures endure everything. He turned toward the pig again. She was standing now, weak but steady, her wet fur glistening under the gray light. She looked around as if trying to understand what had happened.